Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we are continuing with our early off-season preview series, asking a couple of questions of each of the 30 squads in the league to prepare them, or prepare ourselves, I suppose, more accurately, for some of the moves that we may see in this off-season. So, we are making our way slowly but surely through the list of teams, and for today, we are taking things up north a little bit, talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that has all sorts of weird stuff going on for them right now, right? The stories coming out of Minnesota are absolutely entertaining, although they're not always great if you're an actual Wolves fan, but we'll get to that in just a moment. For now, though, we'll throw some stats up on the screen here for the Timberwolves in the regular season. They go 42-40. That was good enough for the 8th seed in the West. They remained the 8th seed after fighting their way through the play-in and finished second in the Northwest Division, obviously behind the Denver Nuggets. So, they make their way to the playoffs here. Once they reach that postseason, though, things get a little bit awkward. They go 2-5 overall, 1-1 in the play-in, then 1-4 in the playoffs itself, and were eliminated in round one by those same Denver Nuggets. So, if you're the Timberwolves, honestly, I think making the playoffs in general was probably something that they're happy with, maybe not content. I think they thought they could give the Nuggets more of a run for their money, or could have made the 7th seed and avoided the Nuggets altogether, but that's neither here nor there. They make it at least, which is more than can be said for some of the other teams in the West. But with that in mind, we'll move over to taking a look at some of their ratings here. In terms of offensive rating, not great. 23rd in the league. Their defensive rating was a little bit better. Just cracked the top 10 there at 10th. So they were able to play some solid defense. That puts their net rating at 20th in the league while playing with the 7th fastest pace in the league and having the 21st highest payroll. So on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of the money that they were spending, although that doesn't really mean much because last season every team except for one was basically over the cap, but relative to the other teams, they were spending a little bit less. But we'll move on from the stats here for the Timberwolves to some of their changes in the offseason in terms of additions and losses. On the additions side, it was announced really just a couple days ago, 1 day ago, whatever, just a little while back, that the team had re-signed Naz Reid, very quality player off the bench, someone who actually gave them more scoring than I think even they had been expecting. There was some tweet I saw that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to dig it back up, but basically it said Naz Reid, in terms of points per minute played, I believe it was like second in the league over the second half of the season. So in terms of the efficiency for how much they were playing him compared to how much he was contributing, that was a pretty solid move for them. And obviously they wanted to bring him back. So Naz Reid gets re-signed. Other than that, a pair of draft picks that they added to the lineup, Leonard Miller and Jalen Clark, both joining the Timberwolves. Looking at the offseason losses here, as of right now, I don't believe that there are any. Again, I will say I am now 100% paranoid after I missed the Rashawn Holmes trade with the Kings, so this will be double and triple checked, and if there's a mistake, it will be shown somewhere on the screen right about now in the editing process. But as of right now, I don't believe that they've lost anyone. They do have some free agents. Austin Rivers is sort of in limbo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker's a restricted free agent, so we'll see whether they match or not on that front if anyone does give him an offer. But for right now, nobody has left this team. So with that out of the way, let's start getting into the questions. And the first question is the biggest and I would say most obvious for the Timberwolves. That question being, Anthony Edwards is the future for this team, right? I mean, I'm not really sure how you can come to any other conclusion if you've been watching some of the Timberwolves games. They are in a very strange position right now. There's no denying that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad one, right? They traded away a lot of assets to get Rudy Gobert. Um, and then they kind of handed over some more of their assets to the Lakers in the middle of the season for very, very little, which as a Lakers fan, I was all on board for, but it was a little bit strange that they sort of parted with some quality players for very little. So the Timberwolves will not be getting any immediate reinforcements, right? Maybe their draft picks pan out here, but I don't think we're expecting any of the players they selected to immediately have a breakout rookie season. So because of that, that makes the emergence of Anthony Edwards as a potential star player for this team all the more fortunate, and something that the team needs to lean into and try to take advantage of as much as humanly possible. Edwards is entering the final year of his current deal, and the Timberwolves honestly may be a little bit tight on money right now in terms of their overall cap situation, but they just can't afford to let Edwards go. They really can't. That's the long and the short of it. They just cannot let him walk for nothing. His points, his rebounds, assists, block shots, steals, free throw attempts, free throw makes, field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage have all gone up each of his first 3 seasons. That's basically supposed to be impossible, right? We see a lot of guys improve in a lot of areas, but you're not supposed to improve across the whole board every single time. That there's always supposed to be a sort of weakness to your game, and Edwards is doing everything in his power to make sure that there isn't one. And while it's obviously not guaranteed to happen again this year, that all of his numbers go up again, consistency has been something in painfully short supply for the Timberwolves, for this team, for this organization, for years now, right? So you need to lean into Anthony Edwards at this point, with Rudy Gobert already being more of a defensive-minded player than an offensive powerhouse, and Karl Anthony Towns' production and honestly level of involvement on the offensive end kind of wavering and fluctuating at times. It seems wise to shift more and more responsibility for your offense onto the shoulders of Anthony Edwards, who has, for the most part, looked like he's been more than capable of handling those responsibilities as he's gained more experience in the league. So I don't know. I don't see any good reason for not keeping him and not making him the focal point of your team unless something off the court or behind the scenes happens that makes that untenable. But obviously we won't know about that until after the fact. So keeping Anthony Edwards seems like the best move for them going forward. But in a similar vein, we move on to question number 2. That question being, should the Timberwolves give this current roster another chance? More importantly, do they have a choice? Now, I think the Timberwolves should not be looking to blow all this up right away. So I'm just going to give my opinion out at the very front. I don't think that they should give up on this roster as currently constructed. The core that they have here is one that I think that they should give another shot. The reason why is we didn't really get to see too much of it, right? Karl Anthony Towns missed over 50 games this season, so we did not get to see the full extent of what a Towns-Gobert front court duo actually looks like over a full regular season. They only had Mike Conley for 24 games after they acquired him around the midpoint of the season. And once they reached the postseason even, they were missing a relatively solid sort of young defensive piece in Jaden McDaniels because he tried to fight a wall and lost and broke his hand. So if you get this team at full strength and healthy for a full season, the Wolves absolutely outperform what we saw this season, right? The record was, 42-40? If you have Gobert, Towns, Conley, Anthony Edwards, and then Jaden McDaniels healthy again, I think they can win more than 42 games pretty easily, right? Just because, I mean, it took them all of this effort with a broken, hobbled roster to get to the 42 they got this season, and their players are still good, even if they're hurt sometimes, even if they don't make the greatest of decisions, like, punching a wall. If they're all there and they're all good to go, I think this team absolutely is better. So if they don't do that, if they don't sort of stick it out for at least one more year and they do want to sort of just blow the whole thing up, then they could opt for a full rebuild around Anthony Edwards. But I think that's a little bit too early. I think you genuinely give this a try with all of your players at full strength and see where it gets you, and then reevaluate in 1 year's time. But that will segue us quite nicely into question number 3. If they do, for some reason, decide to blow this all up, what can the Timberwolves actually get in exchange? And this is the big problem for the Timberwolves, and another reason why I think that they should stick it out with what they have. What are they going to get for the guys that they have on the roster? They do have assets, right? Mike Conley will be on an expiring contract. His production is still solid for a player who is now on the back end of his 30s. I think he's 35. He'll turn 36 in this next season. So he could still provide useful help and a veteran presence for a team that's looking for a point guard option that doesn't want to break the bank and doesn't want to enter the Kyrie Irving sweepstakes. So if the team was truly looking to make some moves, they could do that. If they are absolutely looking at the nuclear option here, then one or both of Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert could be moved, and those are big enough names to command some significant trade packages. They could get a lot back in exchange in terms of picks and assets. Although I do want to point out one thing. For Karl Anthony Towns, that's still the case. For Rudy Gobert, it would be a little bit more awkward because if you do trade Gobert, yes, he is going to get you stuff back, but all you'd be doing is sort of recouping some, but not all, of the assets that you sent out to Utah to trade for him in the first place. So I don't know. If you move him, you'll get something back, but you won't get back your full investment that you spent to go after him. So I'm not really sure if that's worthwhile. But if they are truly trying to just get all of these guys off the roster, pick up what assets, go for a full-on tear the whole damn thing down and build around Edwards, then they could do that. And honestly, we're looking at sort of the big names in Gobert and Towns, but even some of the less prominent names, guys like Kyle Anderson, guys like Jaden McDaniels, you could send those off to a contending team, maybe get like a first-round pick or a young developing player in exchange. So if they were to go in full fire sale mode and just sell anyone and everyone, there are assets that they will absolutely get back. But I don't think you want to do that. I don't think you want to give away everything as opposed to sticking it out with this lineup for one more year and trying to work with what you have. But I guess playing devil's advocate there, right? If you truly don't think that this is going to work out with the personnel that you have, maybe get out in front of it, sell some of these players while their value is at their peak, because if you play out one more season and something goes wrong, a player gets hurt, or Towns or Gobert's numbers dip dramatically, things of that nature, then their value on the trade market would go down as well. So there's the argument for selling, for blowing this up, for trading away everyone that you can for assets. But I think that scenario is exceptionally unlikely, right? Get Towns healthy, get Mike Conley healthy, build around Edwards, and see where that gets you. See if you can make it into the playoffs outright instead of having to fight through the play-in. And if you can do that, maybe we look at the Timberwolves as a team on the rise. But that is going to do it. They've got a lot of stuff to think about now. The roads that the Timberwolves can take are very, very different, right? Between stick it out and see if we can be a contender or give up and blow the whole damn thing up. There's not too many paths in between those two that I think are worth exploring for the Wolves. But let me know what you think. Do you think that they should give this another shot? Do you think they have the flexibility to even try something different? Should they move one of their big names? And if they do, what do you think that they can get in exchange for it? So if you have any thoughts, please feel free to let me know. But that is going to do it for now. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.